What is a blind retrieve? A blind retrieve is a dog handling exercise in which the dog is directed to find a bird that it did not see fall. Blind retrieves are considered to be a test of a dog's control. This is done by using your whistle to stomp the dog and using your arm casts to guide the dog to the bird. Starting the pup off right, that's where you want to be at 10, 11, 12 weeks of age. Sounds impossible, right? But using the Pat Nolan Dixie Cup drill, a food reward, getting them to target that white object that's out in the field and they get a reward when they go out there, you can get them to jump over obstacles like you see here with these two young pups. So this is laying the foundation for the beginnings of what is going to be a fantastic career for these two young dogs and running improved blinds overall. After the puppy stage, you have to have a solid basic program into your dog. I highly recommend the Pat Burns Bomb-Proof Basic Course. Just search for it online. As my dogs came out of that course, they were ready for swim by, and then eventually I was running some basic cold blinds after swim by, the double T, etc. But there's a few more steps involved before I recommend that you run cold blinds. And let's take a look at those next. Before we start running cold blinds in the field, you have to complete more drill work. Wagon wheel drills are an absolute must. A 10-leg lining drill is something I highly recommend, and there are videos on that on my YouTube channel. The 3-leg pattern blind, 5-leg pattern blind, something I learned from the Hunt Test Guide. Check those out on their website. They're excellent drills to run as well. But you have to complete a 4-phase drill before you start running cold blinds in the field with marks. Taking and carrying a line is a very important part of blind retrieves. If you can teach your dog to take a line and carry that for 100 to 200 yards, then it makes running blinds a lot easier. And I did cover that topic, again, a podcast ago, and you can take a look at that here with a little reminder up on the top of the screen. But I want to go over this 10-leg lining drill. And there is a video on that on my YouTube channel. This is a drill that I was taught by Bill Totten, a professional retriever trainer. And I want to go over some of the highlights of this particular drill. And again, we're going to go to the field and we are going to take a look at this drill.
He is a handful, aren't you?
Talking about my young dog Doppler. Okay, so we can stop the video here and you can kind of get an idea what we have going on here out into the field. We have a white marker right there, another one over here to the right, and then in between we'll have short orange bumper markers. There's one there and there's one right over here, and these are the targets that we're going to try and line to. So in a 10-leg lining drill, I've got nice big white visible markers that are out in the field, and those markers are what's going to get the dog's attention. It's going to get them to look out, and you just line them to it. But then when you come back, you get all the long ones. Then we're going to try and get all the short ones, and the short ones are the ones that are going to be a lot more difficult to get, and we can see that here in this video. So I lined up Doppler to the first long pile. And again, I just want to emphasize that the line is from me all the way out to this white marker. Okay, so there's an orange bumper and there's an orange pan and there's bumpers right here. And then there's another one right there. So I'm teaching them to run past these two piles and to carry a line. The other thing you see is a game trail that kind of zigzags in and out of there. So he kind of parallels that line, going to be tied up against this brush pile, and then you're going to go deep to there. So he does carry or get on that game trail, but you know, he has a pretty good idea where he's going. So this is the first one. So now I typically run this, I go from far left to far right. And you got to watch him on the way back in because he saw that short pile. Next, we're going to work on heel and here. I'm going to swing him from the far left all the way over to the far right. And we're going to work on him turning with me.
Back.
So again, he's got to run past that short orange pile. And then he has to end up somewhere back along to that longer white pile that you see in the distance.
Here.
And he does a pretty good job here.
Right there. Great, 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 great. Heel, sit. Heel.
So again, I'm moving to the next one to the far left. Making him have some patience.
Back.
Give him a good, stern, hard back. And again, same scenario. Grab my little tool. Again, there's a short orange pile there. There's another one right there. And the white marker is off into the distance. And there it is right there. Again, this is a lining drill, not a handling drill. I know that may sound kind of bizarre, but when you're running blinds, you want them to take and carry a line and give them a target. This will help you run better blinds. So you can see we have to go past two orange markers and go to the long one. And the long ones are first, and then we'll come back and do the more difficult short ones after we pick up the long ones. Now we're going to have lots of trouble here on the short ones, and I'll show you how you work through that. This is Doppler's first time running this drill. It's about 30 degrees. You can see his tongue's hanging up pretty good. Patience, Bubba.
No.
Yeah.
Here.
So what did he do wrong? Well, he came very close to getting the objective. I mean, I wanted him to go there. And I think he initially was headed there, but then the attraction of this white one was pulling him away or just a little bit past that. So this is the first short pile that he's going to. And I gave him a softer cue of easy, and I sent him a little softer, but still he saw that white pan past this orange one, and that's where he wanted to go. So I made that decision the second he got to this side of that orange pan. That's a beep. No, here. Bring him back in, and then we'll try it again. No e-collar correction there. That was just a no here.
Yeah.
He hasn't done anything really wrong to get any color correction on anything he's done so far. So we're just going to simplify. And by simplifying, we just move up, get a little bit closer. And sometimes you have to get right on top of it because those orange markers are very difficult for dogs to see.
Second down.
Yeah.
Good dog. Good dog. His head went down, his tail went up. Perfect.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect. Good dog. Easy. Easy. Good boy.
Yep. Okay. So 10 leg lining drill. One of my favorite drills to run, especially in the wintertime when it's nice and cool outside and you're running 10 to 10 piles. Dogs get a little hot. Don't do this when it's 80, 90 degrees outside with high humidity. You need to do it when it's very cool because they're going to get a lot of repetition here and they need to be physically fit to do so. That is one critical step on helping you get a better line to a blind. Didn't handle here whatsoever, right? You've gone back and you've done the basics. You've done your double T in your baseball, your 5-leg and 8-leg handling drills. And those should be ingrained in the dog way before you get to this point. You've done swim by. They've had lots of opportunity to get in the water, and you give a big over. Again, those are things that teach the dog how to handle. So again, this is the 10-leg lining drill, not handling drill. And it's one of those key drills that I highly recommend you do to help your dog with a point and shoot scenario. What is the best blind you could run in a competition? The one you line and you don't have to handle. Think about that. Nothing better on a morning when it's 20 below zero in Montana to work on my casting. How do you work on casting? Well, pay attention. I'm going to show you how to properly use hand casts. All right, so I got my back up against the wall. Okay, flat up against the wall. I'm going to give her right straight back. It's not this. All right, I'm not putting my hand out like that. But you see on the black of my arm when I do that, how little the dog would see, okay? And this is with the camera right in front of me. Think of it was out 20, 30, 50, 100, 200 yards. They can't see that. And same with this. This ain't much of a cast, right? Proper casting for a right straight back. I got my back up against the wall. You want your arm above your ear, above your head. I got this hand right here. It's not moving. I'm not dipping my shoulder and then doing this. So it's just back. Same with the left hand. So my hands are here. Got my back up against the wall. Back. And that's another thing I should mention. Don't snap cast. No, that's not proper casting. This is a proper back cast. Leave it there. Okay, in fact, I want my arm touching the wall. And for me, that's hard, but well, it's a good stretch. This is a good exercise to do on a cold winter day. And do it in front of a mirror. You want in fact, you want that to be a straight up. You want your elbow touching your ear, all right? And your hand in the back, touching the wall. All right, whew, getting loosed up. All right, here's a 45. Don't do this. All right, it should be, that's a proper 45 right there. And then maybe a little higher, but try and reach the wall behind you. Same with the 45, you know, and don't snap cast. Dogs blink, dogs will move their head. If they're not focused on you, they're going to miss the cast. So it's slow and control. Slow and control. Okay, over. Now, some people, this is where I vary in my training, and I learned this from Bill Totten. For me, when I give overs are this. I lean into them a little bit, beep. They're looking at me. I'm going to turn and do an over. This whole thing right here is a mini overcast. Okay? I teach my dog, and they're double T, single T, pattern blinds, whatever blinds I'm running. To me, this is an over. Over. Why do I do that? Other people just do this. And that's fine too, if you teach your dog, do that. But to me, if their focus is on me, if I do this, half the time I do this, boom, they're going over. In fact, when I start to turn like this, they start looking over, the over position, you know, they're starting to look that way, looking back at me, waiting for this cast. And this cast. I like to twist my body, okay? That's my formal casting. Learn that from Bill Totten. Another thing to help you when you're cast, don't be anchored right here. Right now I've got a dog at my feet and I'm not going to be able to move too much. But when you cast, and you give that cast, you may have to walk that cast and just keep going. Now, the other thing Pat Burns said, and I don't do this, and it's one of those things that you have to do when you early in your life, otherwise it doesn't register with you. But when you cast, crack your wrist. So when you cast, move your wrist so they see that movement. Another thing, and especially in field trials, you either wear all black or all white depending on what's behind you, but wear a glove. Either a white jacket and a black glove really can stick out in most cases. Or if I think all white is going to be good, I will wear white gloves. I will have a big white glove. And when I cast, my palm is out It's not like this. I'm not doing that. So, I mean, you can even see with my tan hand against a white wall, see which one's better, right? So you got that, or you got that. See the difference? Or this. You'll see a lot of handlers give a side hand, you know, the skinny side of their hand. It should be palms out all the time. Think about it. Practice. Do it in the mirror. Hope that helps. All right, the next topic I want to share with you is on points, especially in water, but you can also have points on land. And let's share a picture from the Super Retriever series, which I thought was kind of fun to watch on YouTube. I want to talk about this particular series, which was the third series, had 2 poison birds and 2 blinds. The blinds, the right-hand one had a double point, which doesn't look too terrible. So it has a double point. So you come into the water and you had to get on this first point right here. And then you had to cross another piece of channel and then come to another point right there. And then here's where the tricky part is on this particular blind. Where do you send your dog from here? Some handlers let their dog roll, get on the shore and roll into the blind. But I think the better thing to do is when you get here is to actually kick out into the water just a bit and then back to the blind. I think that would look better in a judge's book. I don't know if they could see the dog back here or not, because I did hear some comments from Pat Burns saying that they may not be able to see. They had very good vision of the dog back in here, at least the judges. But when I run a double set of points like this, I have to determine, can I see the dog on the backside of this point? Can I see the dog on the backside of this point? If I can't, then I want to kick them out to sea so I can see them and then back to this point. And again, kick out to sea just a bit and then back to this point. That's what I was taught to run blinds off of points. It's like playing golf. Are you gonna hit the ball over the big pond, or are you gonna take another shot off to the bank and then over to the hole? So again, think of it like that. Now, depends on the point. Some points are very flat, and if they're very flat and I got good visibility on the backside, then yeah, I'm going to give the literal cast and try and keep them on line. But if I have poor visibility on the backside of the point, that's considered a hazard. So let's take a look at obstacles and hazards, and we go to the whiteboard. Okay, we want to look at obstacles. Those are things that you have to negotiate the dog over through. Something that's going to influence them to go right or left or take them offline. Now, hazard are things in the field that you're going to lose sight of your dog. And you never want to lose sight of your dog when you're running a blind. So when you run off of points, again, the main emphasis I want to share with you here briefly is that, first of all, you want to get them into the water and then get them onto the point. Some people will just let them roll off the point. I always like to stop on the point, kick out, and then back online to the next point, kick out, and then back online to the next point. I think that looks better in a judge's book than a dog that gets on the point, rolls, ends up over here somewhere, pops out right there. And then you're fighting like hell to get them back in the water. You might get them there, but they'll pop up right there. And you might get them to here, and they'll pop up right there, and then you get to the blind. So this side, this whole side right here is a hazard. Obstacle in this example is getting on and off the point. Those are your obstacles. Those are things you have to negotiate and get to. Get to there, and you need to get to there. So out to sea, get to the point, kick them either straight over and then back, or if you can get a good 45 and then back. The other thing I would caution is that when you get them to this point, on this particular point right here, and you're ready to kick them off, you blow, you wait a few seconds, sweat them a little bit, take a deep breath, cast. Because if they immediately turn and go that way, beep, you can give immediate beep. And sometimes it's as quick as cast, beep. You can tell if just subtle turn on which way they're going to go. And if you don't like that, you got to immediately get on them again. And then I'd be sweating them even more. I'd be making them wait just a little bit longer. And then I'm giving a big over. Okay. So again, just to go over that one more time, try and clean up my drawing here. When you get a dog on a point, you get them to this point right here. You give a beep. I'm taking a deep breath, and then I'm going to cast. And I'm either going to cast straight over or I'm going to cast 45 to my right. And when I cast, I got that deep breath in me. And if I see them do that, and it might be a split second, I'm immediately blowing again. I'm blowing right there. This is as loud of a beep as I can get. This is a hey, no, pay attention. You can do that with your whistle. Big, strong, solid beep. Now I'm leaning into it and I'm looking at them and they can tell I'm upset. I got that deep breath in me. Give them a big over. Again, I got that deep breath because if they do it again, if they skirt again here, then it's a loud beep. And your whole scenario is a make or break right here, whether or not you get this cast, because now you've had 2 cast refusals. Hopefully you didn't have any whistle refusals here and they stop. And this one's going to be a beep, and maybe another beep. Cast. And hopefully you'll get them back in the water. But you do not want them to come back in here. This is the hazard right here. If you lose sight of them. I mean, this might be a mound that's rounded point, and there might be tall grass back in here, and you just lose sight. You cannot lose sight. You got to kick them out and then back to the blind. And it's the same scenario on this. And in fact, when you get on small little points like this, it's even more dramatic. You have to be very quick on your feet and think ahead of time before they get there. How are you going to let this play out? Because you don't want them to get in the water here and then end up back over here. I mean, it's offline and it doesn't look good. And it could be the meaning of whether you place or not, whether you get a jam, whether you get called back to the next series, whether you get a color in a field trial, and whether or not you pass a hunt test. So again, points are very tricky concepts when running your particular setup. So again, going back to this SRS scenario, again, you can see there's 1 point. So just re-emphasizing, I get the dog to here. I would like to kick him just a little bit offline in the water, and it's not very long. It's not a very wide channel. And then I might stop him in here if I could see him, and then back onto this point. And then I'm, depending on what they do, where their momentum is going. If their momentum is going out that way, I may let them roll. But if it probably is going to try and go around the corner of that. So I would definitely kick out to sea and then back to the blind. That would be my plan of attack when I come up and see a blind like this. Those are the things I'm thinking about when I bring a dog up to the line. I mean, I break it down into thirds or even down into 4 or 5 chunks that, all right, I need to get to this point, then I need to get the dog to there, then I need to get the dog to there. And that's how you work out long, difficult concept blinds. Now, this other blind is a doozy. I mean, it's a big, long blind, and it's got a lot to it. So you had to go under the arc of a poison bird. You had to run past this poison bird that was out here. And then right in here is a bunch of little tall grass, just a bunch of little shrubs, but that's a nice target to aim for. So you want to, definitely try and cross this channel, and then you're going to have to handle away from this poison bird, but you don't want to handle too far away because you don't want the dog to end up going over there. I did see some dogs in competition that you lose sight of them right in here, and you wait for them to pop out, and they end up popping out over here. Now, again, if I had a dog and I stopped him right there, what is the hazard of the difficulty of this scenario if I want to kick him out to sea? If I give him that cast, there's a chance they'll just say, oh, okay, I'll go get the poison bird. So this would be a big booming verbal in my book. And again, I had a big verbal and a big cast, and then I try and take as big of a deep of a breath as I could get in. And that's why you need a big, powerful whistle, because if they do curl towards the poison bird, you want to get another stop right here. And then it might be a left hand out into the water. But I still think the best play is to try and get them out into the water, then onto this point, then out into the water, and then to the blind. If they get to the left-hand side and they end up over here on the bank, then you're fighting. I mean, you're giving a ride over, and they may go down the bank and you're stopping them here, and then they may go down the bank and you're stopping them here. And then you cast off to the right again, and they may end up just going disappearing behind here and running down the road. And you're probably going to get a lot more points, especially in the SRS game. So we get whistle refusals, cast refusals, and avoiding the test altogether. Let's take a look at another scenario. This is one of my favorite pattern blinds up in Elk Park. It's part of a 3-leg pattern blind that I run. This 3-leg pattern blind starts off with this blind, and I've added my wife to this pattern field where she's just adding a distraction. She doesn't throw anything. She just stands up and pops, and then she'll sit down and I'll run this blind. So by the end of the summer, I've ran this probably 100 times. And I start right here, right up close, right up next to the line. In doing so, it gives them a clear picture of where they're going. I want them looking immediately into the water right here. Then I'm going to try and get them on this point a little bit right here. And here's another example of getting on and off a point. This point is very rough. There's a lot of crap in here and a lot of ruts and stuff that can take them offline. I want to get them right in here. And then my next cast is out to sea. So they're sitting here now. And then I'm going to try and work my way back across the pond. Because if you let them roll over the top of this, there's a good chance they're going to end up running down this bank because they think they're going straight. They just don't know where they're going. And they'll end up back out here somewhere. So that's why I think it's very critical they know where they're going. I got a big wide target right here at the very end. I want them to see that when I kick them off. Even when I'm running up here close to the bank, I want them to know where they're going. All right, so they know that there's nothing here. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. It's way up on top of the hill up here. Now, once I taught them to do that, then I might move back into here somewhere and then try it again. And then when I get up on the mound, I'm sitting on top of a high mound. And when you sit up on a mound, you actually come down the mound. They lose sight of where they're going. They have to cross the road, and then they have to work their way to the blind, because once they do that, then they may end up saying, oh, I need to go this way. And that is immediate. As soon as I get into here, I'm going to give a sit whistle. No, here. No, call a correction. Bring them back. Send them again. If they do it again, then it comes with a price. Then I'm going to say, no, Nick, here. And if they do it again, it's going to be a stronger Nick, no, here. Then I'm going to move up. All right, so 3 times I've sent them and they've gone into this corner. It's been with a verbal no, mental pressure, no, here. They know I'm upset. Then it's a Nick, and then it's a higher Nick. Now I'm going to move up and say, all right, you're not getting this, so we need to move up. I may move up to there, and if they did it again, then it's going to come with a stronger Nick, and then I'm moving all the way up. So that tells you they didn't understand what I was trying to teach them, so you have to reteach it again, and you may have to go back to that numerous times. I would not go up to here. This is not somewhere I want them to kick off of. I want them to get on and off it. I don't want to walk up there and well, in fact, you can't, because it's just full of water and mud, and there's no way you could actually stand out there. Because if I really had a dog that was struggling, I may have someone up here yelling, hey, 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 and then drop like a whole bucket of bumpers right there. And then I'd run from here and then kick them off. And then that person would hide and leave that big white target there. But again, that's one of my favorite concept lines. By the end of the summer, these guys were literally lining this concept. They saw the picture, and that's what I'm trying to teach them, is that they're going to take a picture, and in their brain, when they come up and see this kind of scenario, they're going, oh, okay, this is an on and off point, and always go to the other side of a big piece of water. Always, 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 always make them think that they're going to have to go all the way across. And it makes your blind running a lot easier on big blinds like that. I want to take a look at a qualifying blind that I judged in Salt Lake City. We ran the marks, okay, and this was the live flyer gun. Nope, I keep grabbing the wrong thing. So this was the live flyer gun. These guys shot and threw over here. Then we had our callbacks, and then we came back and ran the blind. But the gun station stayed up. The gun station did not move. So here you go. You got a point right here. You got a point right there. You got a long piece of heavy cover to get across. You got a point right there. So now it's just like running water. You got to get on and off these points, but I can see the dog behind it. So am I going to kick him off this way? No, I'm not. So this is an example of how you need to read the terrain. So I'm going to try and get all of these factors. The biggest hazard in this whole scenario was the road winding around. One went that way. The other road went around like that. You know, dogs will get on the road and try and run down the road. And that made them handle. And there was another factor right here. There's a big clump of cover. So once they get into here, they could run down the road and poop, disappear. So you had to play this side of the blind a little bit more to get into there. That's an example of points on land. And you can have points on water and you can have points on land. And then lastly, this was a Pat Burns seminar. And let's see if I can find it. So let me grab my marker. Right here is the blind. You can see an orange stake right there. Okay. So this is a zoomed in view and you got to cross this road. I mean, look at the huge wall of cover right here you had to get through. So the dogs really didn't have a good, clear picture of where they were going, which is fantastic training. So they had to get in through the cover, down into the water, and then they're trying to cross. And then they had to get up on this island. So on this island, it's not a perfectly flat island. So you're not going to see them on the back side of this right here. And you got another point right there. But this particular blind was run past that point. So you're teaching them to get on and off a point. Now you're teaching them to go past a point, and that's good training. And in fact, there was a very stiff crosswind when we ran this. And Pat Burns has a good tip here, a good training tip. And this is on my YouTube channel, but let's play the clip and listen to this and think about it for a minute.
I'm going to tell you one thing. Here's what I'm thinking. Well, I thought this is where you were going with it. Oh, crosswind. You're really reading this right. And you were with the crosswind. Typically, I give silent cast into the wind and verbal cast when I'm casting with the wind. So why would that be? Because the silent cast emphasizes more lateral change. So if I'm the dog and I'm wanting to fade with the wind and go to that right shore and you stop me, I need to establish left momentum here. Because if I go verbal, I'm only going to enhance the downwind momentum. So if I go silent and the dog says, okay, I'll go that way. One thing Connor did at the end, said, let her go a little further so you can leave room for this cast. Now you stop, and when you give the right-handed cast, that's verbal because you want to spin them around versus encourage them to go to the right shore. So it's silent into the wind, verbal with the wind. Now that's not an everyday, always thing, but that's a pretty darn good guide.
Here's another point. Here's another example of a point. Getting on and off a point. Here's a classic point sticking off of this pond. And what are your obstacles and what are your hazards? So the obstacle is you got to get into the water, roll down this bank, get them out to here, get them on the point. Now this is another one of those points that's very small. There's not a lot of real estate here. There's not a lot of time to react to what the dog's going to do. So you got to get them into here. And this is an example of a point where I would not let them roll because you cannot see the backside of this. And in fact, if they end up back on the backside, they're going to disappear for a long time, and they may end up way the heck over here. That is not what you want. I would get on this point right there. Okay. Get my dog, beep, take a big deep breath, cast left or right-handed over. I'm not going to say over. I'm just going to give a right-handed over. I got a deep breath in me. And if I see them fade out, I'm going to give an immediate stop, beep, and more than likely they rolled off this point and they're sitting behind here. And again, they disappeared. Then I'm going to give a beep, 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 get them to come back in, and they may end up coming back up on the point. And then I'm going to try and get them to go out to sea again with a right over. So teaching overs in your swim by is a critical part of dog training. I mean, it can save your bacon in a lot of field trials and hunt tests. If you can get an over right here and then back to the blind where you can keep seeing them, marvelous. Money. That is exactly what you want. So that's another example of a short little blind that you have to negotiate. So the hazard is getting on the backside and disappearing because they end up going where they want to go. They don't, you got to teach them to see this concept of going straight off a point, but it's out to sea and then back to the back corner. The next topic I want to cover is building up blind retrieves with concepts. We just looked at one concept, and that was getting on and off a point. The next concept I want to cover is keyholes. What is a keyhole? Keyhole can come in many factors, and let's go to the whiteboard, and I'll show you one example of what a keyhole is. And in fact, I've got a fantastic video on my YouTube channel where I was building up a blind that had a keyhole in it, and it actually had 3 keyholes, and it was a very, very long blind. It was about 250 yards, and there were a bunch of these Russian olives out in the field, and there was another one right in here, and the blind was right there. So here's one keyhole, and that one was smaller, and then there was a bigger keyhole, and again, these are tall Russian olive trees, and then there was a little clump of just shrubs that were sitting here next to the line. So the line to the blind was through, I was standing on a very big mound, and it was probably a good 7-foot, 10-foot mound, and that was a big steep they had to run down. But I started off on the base of that mound, and then I tried to get them to hear us. But I started about halfway, and that was somewhere right in here. So when I build this up, I'm trying to break this down either into a half or a third. And I started here, and I got both dogs to go through the keyhole, but they immediately wanted to veer off to the left. And again, I've got a great big white pan sitting out here. It's a big white bucket that I dumped a bunch of bumpers on. And when they started veering this way, this came with a stop, no here. And then they did it again. That came with a stop, beep, nick, no here. And then if they did it again, there was a slightly stronger beep, nick, here. And I wasn't frying them. I'm not trying to ruin their mental faculties. I'm just trying to teach them that that's not the way I want you to go. So once they learned not to, and this was a big open field right in here. So it was easy for them to get out there and they're like, oh, where am I going? They just had to keep their eye on the ball, which was that white marker. But once they understood this, then I was able to move back, and I probably moved back into here somewhere, ran it again. Then I came back to here, ran it again. And then I called it good for day 1. But I built this up over several days. So there was 3 keyholes here. So the idea, and eventually, day 3, day 4, when I ran it, I mean, they were taking a perfectly good straight line. Now, also in here is a bunch of kind of rough terrain. It's not perfectly flat. There were some game trails in here. I kind of veered off and stuff like that was easy for them to get on and they had to ignore. And again, there were some dips and, just some natural rough cover that was sitting in there. So keyholes are a very important part of retriever training because you'll find them in hunt tests and in field trials as well. But maybe you don't have a natural keyhole where you're training. How can you make a keyhole? Well, that's really easy. And in fact, you'll find this a lot of times in hunt tests and field trials as well. They'll put decoys out, right? So you may want to put a bunch of decoys, and then you find a natural little hole to put them in up front. The other thing you can do is you can put a holding blind here and another holding blind here and maybe another holding blind here. So the line to the blind is past these holding blinds. You can actually have someone sitting out here in a lawn chair. You can do the same thing if you don't have holding blinds. You got someone sitting there, some lawn chair there, lawn chair there, lawn chair there. You can do this in a soccer field or in a city park or in your backyard. You can have lawn chairs sitting out there. You can make keyholes, natural things that they have to negotiate and get through. So keyholes are a very important part of training for blinds in retrievers, hunt tests, and field trials. So, all right, the next build-up topic I'd like to cover is no-no drills or jump obstacles, something you have to make the dog jump over. That's an obstacle. That's something the dog has to negotiate to jump over. And, well, up in my training grounds, we have a big log that's sitting out there in the field, and it's not very big. So when I'm running this, there's this fat little log, and it takes a little effort to get over it. It's probably a good, up to my knee, probably 2 to 3 feet tall, but there's nothing sharp on it. It's kind of a smooth log, but it's not very big. It might be, I'm guessing here, maybe 10 yards wide, if that. But then I've got a white stake out here. And in fact, what I'm doing is I'm running this up against a hay bale that's out in this picture that you see here in front of you. So what is the no-no part? Well, the no-no part is when they get to either side of here. They cannot go that way, and they cannot go that way. If they do that, that is a no, and it may be a no and a nick, and it may be a no and a stronger nick, and it may be a no and a stronger nick, but I'm not frying them here. So in training, teach first. All right, so my first line would be right there. Then I make sure they knew where this was at. And in fact, I may run here so they knew that there was a bunch of bumpers sitting here at the base of this big hay bale. So I might run there, come back. I might run there, go get it. And then I might come to here. And then here's where you're going to start to have a battle because they may not want to jump over that. They may immediately just squirt off that way. And if they do, great. That's great. That's what I'm looking for. I want to teach them that, no, that's not the way to go. And you may actually have to put up a holding blind right here and right here. And then you come inside this holding blind and make them jump over it so they can't go either that way or that way. That's an extreme case. With my 2 young dogs, one was about 1 year old and the other one was about 1.5. I did not have to revert to that. They understood that I meant they had to go over that. So once they learn to jump over it, and they should be able to just to go right to it. Now, the other thing I want to emphasize here on these jump obstacles like this and no-no drills, that, okay, you taught them to jump over this on the way to here. As they're coming back, do not let them come back around the obstacle. This is another no. This is another no. You're going to have to either walk them back to here, and then you literally step over. When you walk back and you come to your original line, you step over that log. Don't you go around that log. You will go over that obstacle. Teach them. Say, let them see that. Say, oh, well, Dad did it. I guess I can do that too. Then you call them back. And if they continue to do this, then I would bring them up to here and call them back. But you want to get it on the way out and on the way in. Okay, to jump over that. And eventually you're going to end up working back a little bit away from here. And then that's where things get interesting, because now the temptation is there to do it again. So this is something you're going to have to work through and go over probably a good week of teaching no-nos, especially with young dogs. But if you have older dogs, it may not be quite so time consuming, but it's something you need to teach before you try and get a heavy correction. And don't get mad at them if they get frustrated and they just want to say, no, I'm going around. You have to fight that battle. You have to win that battle. They can never go around that obstacle. And if they do, you move up and make them go over it. And it's just something they have to understand, that you're the alpha. They have to do what you ask them to do. And it's not by heavy pressure. It might be mental pressure, but it's not physical pressure. Okay, so no-no drills are an important part. So once I teach a no-no drill with that jump obstacle, and I've got my pile of bumpers out here, and they're doing it good, and they're just going over this obstacle over and over again, and I can get them to come back the same way. How do I make this more difficult? How do I take it to the next level? So I have my jump obstacle. I had my original line up here with all the bumpers next to a hay bale. Well, now I'm going to put that pile on the other side, and I'm going to run from this side, and I've got all my piles sitting here. And again, I got a big white target sitting here, and now I'm going to reverse this. I'm going to go in the opposite direction. Now they're going to have to go over it this way and get it and come back, jump over it and come back to me. So just reverse it, just turn it around. I did learn from Pat Burns that he bought one of those tubes that you see in confirmation or agility. You know, one of those tubes they have to go through and wiggle around. Well, they make them jump over that tube, and you can put that tube anywhere you want. I know Clark Kennington and Lyle Simon, they actually have an irrigation pipe, a plastic one that they cut in half, and they leave that in their truck, and they'll put that out in the field. I have old telephone poles. When the utility company came through and they pulled out all the old telephone poles up in Elk Park, I asked them if they would leave those telephone poles, and they did. And I was able to drag those out on the field and stagger them out there. And they're not a very big jump obstacle at all, but it does pose a challenge for the dog when they try and jump over that, where they see that out in the field. And that's great for throwing marks behind. And, you know, you don't want your telephone poles to be in a line like that. I tried to stagger one like this and another one out like that and another one like that. So you have chances to run, you know, through them, over them, get a corner, etc. And they're great things to put out in the field as well. So the other thing with a no-no and an obstacle might be we had great big straw bales out in our field, and over time they break down, so they just end up being this messy clump, and it looks something like that, and it might only be a couple of feet tall, and that's another thing to get them to try and jump over and not to go around. So you can set up a whole nother no-no drill running that. And in fact, I'm going to show you here on a blind scenario that I have coming up here in just a second of exactly that. Okay, so we have keyholes, we have jump obstacles, and teaching basic blinds. So if I'm going to go out into the field and run blinds, I'm going to run blinds. And then I'm going to do what's called a three PEAT. And this is something I do when I'm training all by myself. I'm going to go out and work on a blind concept. It might be 200-300 yard basic blinds just to get them to go. Big flat field, no obstacles or hazards. See that white marker? Go get it. And then another time I might come up and say, all right, I'm going to try and find 3 natural keyholes, or maybe 1 or 2 natural keyholes that I can run. And then I'm going to manufacture another one. We're running between holding blinds or lawn chairs, etc. I might work on that for a day in my morning training session. Then I would work into water if I could in the summertime, and on and off points. Now I'm going to try and do it 3 times. Try and find 3 locations that I can do that. And in fact, up in Elk Park, what I do is I run that way down the shoreline with a point. Then I immediately turn around and run the other way right behind me and run on and off a point that way. That's great training as well. And you want to try and repeat the same concept 3 times to really lock that in. And another fantastic obstacle is over a mound. And in fact, let's put that here in number 4. So mounds. When you have a mound in the field, depending on how big it is, you know, judges will make you clip a corner of a mound on a blind, if they have a blind out here, and you have to get on and off the mound. You treat it like it was a point. You try and dog may roll up on top of the mound, but once they're up here, then it's an over off the mound and then back to the blind. Now, if they roll over the top and they disappear, you give a sit whistle in training. Try and teach this concept. If they roll over the top of a mound and they disappear behind the mound, you give an immediate beep. Then I'm going to sit down. Sounds stupid, right? But I'm going to sit down. Why? I'm going to be looking for the dog because they'll probably autocast, and then I'm going to get a correction for that. But what I want them to do is if they disappear behind something, they need to try and find me. If they turn around, they can't see me, they need to try and find me. Either try and come up to the mound or come off to one side or the other or behind heavy cover and try and find me. One of the field trials I ran a long time ago, we were up on a high mound and there was a shoreline that did that. And the blind was on the other side of this piece of water. And the bank kind of came around like this. And what I had to do was the blind was back in here. And I got my dog Dusty all the way to this point right here. And he was on land. And I gave the over and he went like that. He went right to there. I couldn't see him. And there were people in the parking lot back in here watching this. And I couldn't see him. And I was real frustrated. And I gave a big booming left hand over. And my God, he took it. Why did he take it? It's because he could see me here. I couldn't see him, but he could see me. And I did not know that until I got back to the parking lot. And folks there in the parking lot were telling me that, hey, he could see you out there in along the corner of that. So again, just to re-emphasize this concept that when you get a dog to the shoreline and they disappear behind the shoreline, you don't know where they're at. You give a whistle. You hope because you didn't see them, you don't see them. You wait 5-10 seconds. If you don't see them, you hope they're sitting. And then just assume they can see you. Just assume, even though you can't see them, just assume they can see you. And teach that. Teach that when you're going over mounds and stuff like that. So again, that's good training there as well. So here's an example of, you may not be able to do a 3-peat, but I was able to do kind of a 2-peat up in Ronan, training with Marcus Bello. We were able to run 2 blinds. And again, basically you got 2 on and off the points that you can see here. So we crisscrossed the lines, but I was running 150, 200 yard blinds, and these are good qual blinds, I thought. And when we were up in Ronan running this, again, once you got the dog up to here, you sit him down, and the hazard on getting onto this piece of water is that they want to run down that land. They don't want to get back in the water. So here's where you stop them, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with kicking them wide, getting them right out into here, and then back into the blind. The last thing you want to do is get a dog that comes in here, lands, kick him off, comes in here, lands, kick him off, comes in here and lands. That doesn't look very good in a judge's book. So you get them up to here. I want to kick them out just a little bit out to sea so I can see them and then keep them online. So I may have to stop here. They may be fading one way or the other because it opens up back in here. So they may go right or left or whatever, but at least you have a fighting chance. You don't want to keep landing on, you have them keep curling back and getting on land offline, because then you're really fighting it as you go out there. So here's another good example of this point right here. Again, if you break it down in half, this front half is where you want to land. The back half is a hazard. And you want to think of it as a 400-foot cliff the dog's going to fall off of and die if they go back there. Now, that may sound extreme, but when you're handling, I would get them on the front side of this, stop them right there. A lot of people just let them roll if they had good momentum, but in doing so, and they disappear behind here, you don't know if they're going to pop out over here somewhere, and then you're way offline. So again, you want to stop them in this front half right here, and then kick them out so you can see them, and then work your way back towards the blind. That's going to look a lot better in your judge's book. Building up concepts. So number 5 would be running past scent. Running past scent. So that's another concept to build in your playbook when you run blinds and you teach blinds. Running past scent. You'll see a lot of drag back scent in hunt tests, where dog after dog is getting the bird and getting in the water, and they come up on the bank. Well, that dripping wet duck is going to leave scent. So there's going to be a scent trail, and you want to teach them to kind of avoid that, especially when they run a blind along that scent line or downwind of it. You want to be able to do that. And 4-phase drill is fantastic for doing that when you're running with marks. But when you're running just a blind scenario, I like to put out some scent lines. And how do you put out scent lines? Well, in your blinds, you put out 3 dead ducks, but you want to make sure it's just slightly upwind. So the wind is blowing from the duck to the line to the blind. So again, I'm out running a good 200-yard land blind. There's not a lot of terrain in here. I'm trying to keep the blind concept basic, especially for young dogs. So I am using, again, a white disc out here at the very end that they can clearly see. The wind is blowing this way, and I've got 3 dead ducks right here, which is kind of close, about 30 yards from the line, and about 3/4 the way to the blind, close to the end, I've got another pile of 3 dead ducks. So that's what the red X's mean. So there's 3 dead ducks spread out right there. There's 3 dead ducks spread out right there. And again, they're both downwind. So I'm going to run this, but they can clearly see that white marker at the end. And I'm going to send them and watch them run past those 3 dead ducks. However, if they cave into it, then that's a good opportunity to handle, to stop them. In training, I'd give them a no cast. Now, what happens if they pick up a dead duck? All right, everybody says, yeah, right, my dog will pick up a dead duck. Well, you have to walk out there, the walk of shame, walk out there, grab that bird, tell them no, put the bird back in the pile of the other 2 ducks, step back about 10 yards, and then run the blind from there. Just tell them no, back. And you may have to do that to the next one as well. And if you had a dog that was very immature, did not understand and have a good, solid blind basics, and you're just struggling like crazy, I would probably build this up into thirds. I'd probably go up to the first pile of dead ducks and run the blind from there to the pile of bumpers that I have at that white pan. And then I might move back about 10 yards and then run it again, and come back about 10 yards and run it again. And then I may come back to the second pile of dead ducks and run it from there, and then come back 10 yards from that, and just build that up. So that might be the only thing you do in that training session, because they're going to run to that pile maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. They're going to be exhausted by the time they do that. But once they understand this concept, then I would just go up to the original line and try and run it cold and handle on the way to that blind, and watch their reaction as they run past those piles of dead birds. And then I basically taught that to them. So let's make it a little harder. Now I'm going to move my line. So I'm going to repeat this 3 times, i.e. 3-peat. So here's one of those decaying straw bales that we have up in Oak Park. Perfect jump obstacle, but we'll come to that. That's the 3rd one I ran. This left-hand yellow line is the one I ran second. So now the wind is again blowing. Grab the right tool. The wind is blowing this way across the line. So this first pile of birds is on the downwind side. However, there's a stake right here that I have this marked with. I want to teach them to run past that and then kind of pinch a little tighter to these 3 birds right here, which is, again, on the upwind side, blowing towards the line to the blind. So that was a great blind to run. So run between these 2 piles. All right, then they did all right there. Then I said, all right, let's challenge this even more and let's put a jump obstacle in front of them. So we repeated our no process. If they went that way, that's a no. If they go that way, that's a no. And then you have to move up to here, get them to jump over get them to jump over this, and then out to the blind. So now they've got this thing up front. So they're going to lose focus on what's out here. So that's why I like using these white markers. So initially, when I'm back here running this, they see that white marker, but they're going to lose sight of that and kind of forget about it when they have to jump over something like this. Because most dogs can't jump over the whole thing. They have to jump up on top and then jump off and then end up going. But if they can get back into here and they look out, and you want them to teach them to look out, and they see that white marker, and hopefully they run right to it. But again, you have to watch them when they get down into here. How are they going to react getting closer to these 3 dead birds? So that's another great concept for running blinds.